Nicodemus here. On today's episode, I wanted to dive into be, do, have. And I know that the course has its own definition. And then from the training perspective, I'd like you to explain be, do, have as well.
Yeah, the course doesn't specifically say it, be, do, have like that, but it speaks into when you hear as a present the distinction, there's always a way to tie it into the course. I actually like to go to the Bible first because in the video that we were watching, they talk about where does be, do, have first show up. It shows up in Genesis, and it shows up with be fruitful. You probably heard that be fruitful, and then some of the things to do replenish, do multiply, have have a dominion is how it says it in Genesis. Now, what is the dominion? Believe it or not, the course talks about that is that when we understand our true self, we have dominion over all things we see. And it's not like dominion in the way of like you have dominion over your dog or over that person. It's dominion in the sense of, like the course would say, is we're the dreamer of the dream. So we have dominion over all things in the dream. And by definition, that means nothing in the dream can touch us. Now, what we talk about in the training is be, do, have. The way that we were taught is the total opposite. That when I take something, for example, like when I have money, and then I do all the things I'm going to do when I have money, I'm finally going to be happy or be free or be abundant. Or it might say a little bit different where I need to, when I do what I need to do to have money, then I'll be happy. Or it could look something like when you do what you need to do and you finally have the relationship of your dreams, then you're going to be loving, be intimate, be connected. But that's not actually the way that it works at all. If you look at it, it's who I'm being determines the effectiveness of my doing, which together determine what shows up and what I have. One of the analogies we would use in the training is that who I'm being and the actions I take from that place is we'll call it a context or an environment, and that nothing could show up in the environment unless I'm the space for the environment. So I'll give you an example of this. I can't create a happy marriage if I'm pissed off all the time. It just doesn't show up in that environment. So who I'm being and who I'm being is how I think, the words, my ways of being, loving, connected, open, forgiving. That's going to generate, when I take action from that place, it's going to generate certain results to show up in my life. Now, the course would say it in the way of who I'm being as an environment is going to be determined by which teacher I'm listening to in my thoughts. Now, remember, there's only two teachers. I can listen to the voice of love, of forgiveness, of peace, of abundance, or I can listen to the teacher of fear, separation, greed, anger, attack. Depending on which of those teachers that I listen to, that will be the environment I am as a human being. One of the distinctions that the course says is ideas leave not their source. So they reflect the source in which they come from. So my ideas, my thoughts are, going to reflect which teacher I listen to. That will be the environment that I am, which when I take action from that place, that determines what shows up. So let's go a little bit further into it, is that one of the things the course says is that we we put out into the world who we're being, how we think. That is in many ways what we're teaching to the world. And then the world witnesses back to us to show us which teacher we listen to. So, for instance, if I'm angry within myself, if I'm being angry and disconnected, hurtful, and operating from a place of separation, that's what'll show up and come back to me. It's the world witnesses that back to me. So you have an example of this. We've all experienced this. You ever, when you're having a tough day, it seems like nothing's going right. Everywhere you go, it seems like it follows you, right? The person at the gas station, or maybe you go to the food store and the person at the counter, your cashier. It's like that follows us everywhere. Well, why? Because how I'm being is affecting what's showing up in my space. So for us, it's a very important distinction. And what it starts to show us is that we have actual power to choose how we're being, how we're thinking, and the actions we take. And then what ends up happening is that the world then witnesses back to us. When I say witnesses back to us, it gives us evidence to ultimately, let's say it like this, to ultimately show us which teacher we chose. It's really simple. So if I have all this stuff of chaos showing up in my life, anger, hostility, conflict, I get to look within myself, how I'm thinking, who I'm being, and then what action steps I'm taking that is having that show up in my life. And this is where ultimately transformation occurs. One of the things he says in the course, Jesus says, is that nothing is showing up by accident. We are responsible for what we see. I'm responsible for my sight, how I see the world, who I'm being in the world. And that ultimately, if we take this to the final step, if you will, is that you and I have a very important function here. We came here to be the light. So when I'm being the light and I do things or take action from that place, what shows up always mirrors back to me the light. It always reminds me of the choice to be the light and listen to the teacher of light, the Holy Spirit. The world will then give that back to me. So if you think of your life as a life of boomerangs, what you put out does come back. So it's very important for us to understand this distinction. What most people are doing is they're waiting for what they want in the world to happen, have, and then I'll be at peace, and then I'll be free, and then I'll be loving and abundant. And it never works that way. We get to learn to access that within ourselves and practice it. That's what the Holy Spirit's always calling us to, is to practice within ourselves, practice being the light and forgiveness and really giving that, doing, extending that out to all of creation. And then what comes back to us reflects that. So this is a very fundamental concept. And it's very important. And it's also interesting that in Genesis, be, do, have shows up right in the beginning of the Bible. It's as though we've been communicated from God, the Holy Spirit, continuously, that we get to master who we're being in the world and what we do and the actions we take, so that what we have is fruitful. What we have that shows up reflects that. And I can see from my own experience, this has been my experience. It's not like my life was always perfect and sunsets and just always happy go lucky. Granted, I've had a lot of happy times, but there's also very challenging times. Early on, especially when I came to the course in the beginning, my life felt so chaotic. And it's very interesting, at that time, I always thought it was out there happening to me. Over time, practicing these distinctions that I talked to you about on the channel, I do this with myself. I'm constantly doing the lessons, practicing, reading the course, praying when I need support, asking for guidance. The more and more that I've learned to do that, the more and more my life has reflected it in my marriage, in my relationships, in my level of abundance and resources, my feeling of peace and fulfillment. But ultimately, it's a choice for us. This is what he says in the course, is that choice is the one remaining freedom that you and I have as a prisoner of the world. We all start in a prison. We start in a prison of our own mind, of our own ego, but we have a choice to see it differently. And in that seeing it differently, we have a choice to choose ultimately who we want to be in the world, what we want to be about, what matters to us, and then extending, taking action, doing from that place. And then what we have that shows up always reflects that, the environment that we are as spiritual beings, as the course would say, spirit, as accessing our function as the light in the world. And when you be that, watch what starts to happen to your life. Watch the people that shows up, the resources that show up. Watch what shows up in your life. It will mirror that choice to be loving, to be joyful, to be free. That choice to ultimately listen to the teacher of peace, the teacher of love, to ultimately listen to the Holy Spirit.